Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second volume of Sacred Soma's Storytime Serenade, where we will be talking about Orpheus and Eurydice. We're going to be covering three great love stories in Storytime Serenade. The first one, of course, was Eros and Psyche, and that was all about how love can transform the human soul. This story is all about Orpheus and Eurydice. I have to first preface this story with a quick personal note about this particular myth. You may be familiar with Orpheus and Eurydice as a myth, but if you look everywhere, the way that this story is told is actually quite tragic. I first heard this story when I was approximately 15 or 16 years old. I was quite obsessed with mythos, as I have explained in the previous video, and I was actually traumatized by the end of this myth. It shook me to my core, just from a perspective of stories are important. And when I heard that there was an alternative ending to Orpheus and Eurydice, I was ecstatic because it meant that there was an ending that truly made sense. As discussed in the previous video as well, the reason why we're even doing a Storytime Serenade is because of the importance of stories to crafting and weaving reality. Because the stories that survive are the stories that help ground and anchor our reality. And as such, this retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice will not be the one that I heard when I was 16 and traumatized me. It will instead be a love story of triumph, where love can send a hero down into the depths of the underworld, into hell itself, to retrieve a love and bring her back into the world of the living. Let's get started with the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. Who is Orpheus? Orpheus, and I tease my husband Kevin about this all the time because I think that he's a little bit of a personification of Orpheus. Orpheus was considered to be the son of Apollo and Calliope. Calliope was known to be a goddess of Atlantis, so a primordial goddess whose brother would be Atlas. Apollo is also known as the sun god, and with his twin sister Artemis, they rule the sun and the moon. Apollo is also known as creating the lyre, the very lyre that Orpheus, as the greatest musician of all ancient times, was proficient at using. Orpheus is known to be the patron god of all musicians. All of the world's animals and living beings, even inanimate objects, wanted to be close to Orpheus because of his musical talent. In addition to Orpheus being known as a great musician, he was also known as being a magician or an astrologer. Fun fact, astrologer in Latin actually means magi. So take Orpheus being an astrologer as you wish. Orpheus is also known as the seer and mystic of many rites. He was also considered to be a warrior, as he was also considered an Argonaut, as he joined Jason and his Argonauts in their quest to retrieve the Golden Fleece. It was Orpheus himself who played his lyre so sweetly that he caused the dragon to fall asleep who was guarding the fleece, so that Jason could retrieve it and become king. So Orpheus was also known to be blessed by the muses, which is why if you think about the word musician, it comes or is derived from muses, right? The muses are also known as the goddesses of the arts. They're very much associated with Venus and Dionysus as well. So Orpheus was very much blessed by the muses as well as all of nature, because sound and music and vibration is everything. And the ability to wield that type of power in such an emotional and wonderful way is a true power. Now, Orpheus, for all of the women who were very much drawn to him because he was a musician, I mean, even that, musicians, irresistible, right, ladies? Eurydice was a woodland nymph. And Eurydice, quite simply, was drawn to Orpheus and his beautiful playing of his lyre. And it was love at first sight. Even though Orpheus could have any woman that he desired, he fell head over heels for Eurydice because of her innocence and shy, sweet nature. They were immediately infatuated and in love with each other. And not long after, they got married. Now, there are a couple accounts of what happens next. Unfortunately for this beautiful couple, their happiness was short-lived. Not long after the wedding, Eurydice was minding her own business in the forest, picking flowers, doing things that pretty woodland nymphs do. So as she was picking flowers, waiting for Orpheus to come back from his travels, as he was a musician, and musicians are also known as bards, and they do travel around telling stories and songs, which is so important to our culture. We still do that to this day, right? Eurydice was in the forest picking flowers when this creepy shepherd tries to come up to her, and because she's so beautiful, he tries to rape her. Eurydice runs away, frantic, trying to get away from this creepy shepherd, and she trips, she falls, and there's multiple accounts of what happens. Either she falls down a cliff and hurts herself and dies, or she's bitten by a viper and then she dies. Either way, through her refusal to be taken advantage of by this shepherd, she is killed, and she then passes on into the underworld through no fault of her own. She was just minding her own business, and this guy just came and like accosted her. So he runs away, not wanting to deal with Orpheus's ire, of course. But Orpheus, when he finds Eurydice, is just completely heartbroken. He's never experienced a grief like this before. The only woman that he's ever loved is now gone. And from this point on, his music, his songs, all just became songs of tragedy and hurt and pain. Orpheus talked to his father Apollo, who took pity on his poor son and knew how much he loved Eurydice. He told Orpheus that he would talk to Hades and see about the possibility of Orpheus going down to the underworld to retrieve Eurydice. This managed to be worked out, although the journey was not to be easy. From this point on, this is where the story differs from the stories that you're going to find as the official version and the story that I'm going to retell right now with the alternate ending. Quick disclosure here in terms of credit. This version is actually from John Lamb Lash's version, which you can find on his YouTube channel. I will credit it in the description below. I've also taken my own spin on that spin, so please bear that in mind as well. Here we go. Orpheus represents a warrior shaman. The reason for this is because he represents the ability to travel between worlds and to be able to descend into the underworld to retrieve his lost beloved. Once Orpheus descends down into the underworld, he has to overcome many obstacles, such as Cerberus, I'm probably mispronouncing that, the three-headed dog. Just remember, Orpheus is a musician, and he has the charm and skills to work his way through the many trials of the underworld in order to make it to the throne room. Once Orpheus reaches the throne room of both Hades and his wife, Persephone, He plays an epic song of sorrow and pain and grief for his lost love. Moved by his music, Persephone, the queen of the underworld, is in tears. She is remembering her own yearning for life, for love, and a time when she was alive prior to her abduction by Hades himself. When the song is complete, the entire throne room is in silence. And at this point, Persephone explains to Orpheus that none of the beings in the world of the dead have a voice or are allowed to speak. She reveals that Persephone so misses the world of the living that any soul that has passed into the underworld is robbed of their voice because she simply cannot stand the memory of any of the spirits talking about their time alive. She simply cannot have it. And so Eurydice and all the other spirits in the underworld have no voice. They have no substance. They have no weight. Persephone says, I cannot bear the memory of the living so much that I cannot allow the spirits to speak. But for love, I will allow Eurydice to have a voice. Hades nods in agreement with his queen and then states to Orpheus, you have one chance. Eurydice will follow you down this treacherous path up to the world of the living. But there is one condition. You can never look back. You can never look back at her. You must only look back at her once you both are in the sunshine of the world of the living. Orpheus agrees to these terms. As a shaman, he understands the rules of travel between worlds. And he also understands that he is doing something that is quite out of cycle, and understands that the only way to the world of the light is the way to lead his beloved to it. He cannot carry her to the light. He cannot drag her into the light of the world of the living. She must follow him, and he must trust that he will have the strength. Armed with the gift of Persephone's voice, Eurydice follows Orpheus out of the throne room to the treacherous path out of the underworld. Orpheus and Eurydice make their way through rocky, dead-smelling terrain, long, dark corridors of hopelessness, and tight spaces of damp, dark death, to the final path, to the open cave where one can see this beautiful meadow, blue skies, the sunshine, and the smell of life. They make it through this last path. Orpheus is about to take that final step out into the world of the living. Before he does, he speaks out, Eurydice, my love, are you with me? I dare not step out into the world of the living without you. And using the voice that Persephone has gifted her, Eurydice speaks out, yes, my love, I am with you. And with that, Orpheus takes his steps out into the meadow, and Eurydice follows right behind, and a great surge of energy envelops them both when their feet touch the ground. The cave closes up behind them, and a waft of energy pulses through the space. There's nothing left but just the meadow, flowers, the chirping birds and flowers. Orpheus finally turns to look at Eurydice, and she is herself again. That same beautiful girl in the woods before she ran off, fresh and full of life, with her voice fully back. They kiss each other and they live happily ever after. And so that is the retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice. I am not going to give credit to the story that is more commonly circulated out in the public right now. You can actually go search for the official ending yourself. But I hope that you take this retelling to heart and think about why. Why do you think the story that survived was one of tragedy, where the lesson was, don't look back or you will instigate the ire of the gods? Why is it not instead the fact that love, true love, inspired by creativity and music, can move the gods in such a way that if your love is true and your quest is pure, that you deserve a happy ending and you will be gifted with love and find that way back to the world of the living. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me for Sacred Soma's Storytime Serenade, Volume 2, about Orpheus and Eurydice. Our last one is going to be about Venus and Adonis in this particular epic love series. That doesn't mean that stories are going to end, because stories are, of course, very important. So let me know if there are any other stories that you would like to do a retelling to, or if you would like for me to look for an alternative ending to, and we can see that in the next one. Thanks, everyone.